Hello, everyone, and welcome into crushthestreet.com. I'm Kenneth Amaduri, and we're joined today with a returning guest, a filmmaker, is on the line with me, Tim Delmastro. He's out with another Bitcoin documentary, Bitcoin Beyond the Bubble. It's a must-watch. I watched it over the weekend, and it's got some incredible guests, some guest appearances, including Trace Mayer, Tone Vase, Jeff Berwick, Mike Maloney, G. Edward Griffin, Eric Voorhees, and the list goes on. Now, of course, you might recall Magic Money. You might have seen it on Netflix. It got very, very popular, especially, what we've seen in 2017 with the rise in cryptocurrencies. Magic Money was put out very timely in 2016, and history has now been made with what we've seen in Bitcoin now. So Tim has come back to talk to us today, and I'm so happy to have him on the line. Tim, thanks for coming on with me at Crush the Street.
Kenneth, thanks so much for having me on. It was fun last time, and hopefully we can share some thoughts and have a good discussion this time.
Yeah, what a timely discussion. Last year, we did this 1 year ago in April, and we were excited that Bitcoin hit $1,000 again. It was in the low thousands when we did that interview. And, from April into the summer into December, it went crazy. But Bitcoin is obviously making huge moves, and given what we've seen, what are your thoughts? Why did you make this latest documentary, Bitcoin Beyond the Bubble?
Yeah, so I'd already made a documentary called Magic Money, as you mentioned earlier. The reason why I made Bitcoin Beyond the Bubble is because I think it really felt like last December and early January when the crypto bubble really hit mania status. Everybody was just talking crypto. I felt that people and the general public and the new people that were coming into the space, everyone really just lost sight of why we got into Bitcoin to begin with. Bitcoin has the properties of censorship resistance and a store of value, and all these things which basically attracted me to Bitcoin, and everyone started to lose sight of that. And cryptos and Bitcoin, basically, it became something like a get-rich-quick scheme, like a dot-com mania type thing. So I released this film, Bitcoin Beyond the Bubble, so that people could really learn about the technology behind Bitcoin and to kind of look at something aside from just the price going up and down. And I should probably mention that the film is free on YouTube. We released it on YouTube for free.
Yeah, we'll have the links in the description area. Tim, so when you put out Magic Money in 2016, what was your expectations at the time for Bitcoin? Did you really think we'd be talking about Bitcoin the way we are right now, just a short 2 years later?
I think it was inevitable. I mean, if you look at what Bitcoin can do for people, the fact that you can send money around the world very cheaply and without it being blocked, it's censorship resistant. So I think it was inevitable that as time went on, people would be attracted to it. But I am surprised that it's become this. It's almost like a mania now, and it's not even Bitcoin. It's all these other altcoins that are doing it. All these ICOs. Like I just said, people. I don't know about anymore, but people were making 30 times, 50 times, 100 times on their money in a month or in 2 months. So the word gets around that some guy's making all this money, and then other people want to jump in, and then so you had a whole bunch of stupid money come in that just wanted to get rich and basically has no idea about the underlying technology behind any of these coins, and so they don't understand the value proposition that a particular coin might present. So, like I said earlier, that's why I made Bitcoin Beyond the Bubble, to kind of discuss some of the things, some of the aspects that we all love about Bitcoin that people have lost sight of.
Sure. Yeah. No. And I'm wondering, Tim, have you offended anybody by calling what we saw at the end of 2017 here into 2018 a bubble? Because I know a lot of people don't like to use that because it suggests maybe the ending of something versus just a correction. And I think that's the point of what the Bitcoin Beyond the Bubble is that it's more than just something that was here one day and gone the next. I mean, there's a real technology here.
Right. Have I offended anyone? I don't think so, but it clearly is a bubble. Most of these ICOs are just fancy websites with a PDF attached to it. So people are putting proper, real money into these things. So what else could it be? I mean, they're just, you and I could start a website, you know, make it look all shiny and fancy, attach a PDF with a good story and a good business plan, and then we can raise $50 million. I mean, how is that not a bubble? You know, and a lot of these coins now are down 80%, 90% from their high. So people can do whatever they want with their money, but I think the reason I got into cryptos to begin with is because I really believe that Bitcoin can change the world.
Right.
You know, I'm a libertarian, and basically the properties that led me to hold gold and precious metals is basically the same reason that I'm holding Bitcoin at the moment. So it's not to get rich. It just so happens that you know, the price goes up and you know, you can profit from it.
Sure. Well, you know, I guess the reason why I hesitate to say bubble, and I completely agree with you with what happened, but you know, we've seen major price corrections in the past, right? And you know, just imagine all those poor people that caught up in the bubble of Bitcoin to $30 to watch it crash down, right? You know, ultimately to see it go to 20,000, right? So, you know, a couple months out from $20,000 Bitcoin, I mean, you know, we might be seeing some very, very big numbers here. I think just for Bitcoin to equal gold's market cap, it needs to go over $400,000 per Bitcoin here. And I know maybe that's a little far-fetched, but anything in between that, I think people would be pretty happy with. And I actually tend to think that gold can go much higher than the $8 trillion market cap it currently has. So I guess this isn't the end, right? You're not saying that this is the end of Bitcoin.
So I think we need to distinguish between Bitcoin and all the other coins. I think if you laid out all the coins and you said which one is different from the others, Bitcoin stands alone by itself, and then you have all these other coins in another group. So I think you need to really differentiate between the two. Is this the end of altcoins? Probably not. People are still investing in ICOs, and these coins are pumping again now. So it certainly isn't the end of altcoins, but I do believe that one day people will just realize that there's no value there, and there's no value proposition. Bitcoin is different in that it's the only coin that's really is decentralized. It's the only coin that has censorship resistance properties. It's the only coin that is a store of value. I mean, would you consider any of these other coins a store of value? I don't think so. I think what's happening is people are buying these other coins because they missed out on the big gains of Bitcoin a few years ago, and they're trying to mimic those gains now with some other coin. The other thing is, all these other coins have a marketing department behind them. And I've heard things like, you know, this coin is like Bitcoin, but better because, and then they'll give you a list of reasons why their coin is better than Bitcoin. So I think, look, I think it's obvious now that Bitcoin is here to stay. It wasn't like this maybe 3 years ago. In 3 years ago, it was still an experiment, but now I think it's here to stay. But as far as price projections, I mean, that's such a hard thing. I mean, Bitcoin could be $2,000 a coin. It could be 20,000. It could be 200,000. Who knows?
Yeah.
Which is why I think what's important is to not take your eye off the fact that Bitcoin does have properties that the other altcoins do not, and that's what makes it valuable.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So Bitcoin going to 20,000 was pretty bubblicious. It was a little bit crazy. It got a little out in front of itself. But I guess to a certain extent, sure, a lot of dumb money came in, and a lot of people that didn't know what they were doing were investing into this. And, we were getting text messages right at the top of the market from people who never invested in a stock.
We were all getting those messages.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but, having said that, I think money attracts talent on the flip side. And there's been a lot of talent that has been attracted to the cryptocurrency space, even in, a lot of the altcoins as well. And so without this price movement, without the opportunity to make some money, maybe we wouldn't be here to the same degree had we not seen this big price move upwards.
Yeah, I agree with that. People have to realize when they buy an altcoin that they're a few steps removed. This is if they buy it as an investment. They need to realize two things. Firstly, that any coin, including Bitcoin, altcoins are bearer assets, which means that they're unlike any other investment that's out there, in that you can be hacked or you can get your coin stolen remotely. When you buy a coin, unless you're holding it on an exchange, but if you take possession of it, then you own that coin and you have the responsibility of protecting it. And I think a lot of new people don't understand that. Secondly, if new people are buying these coins as an investment, they also have to realize that they are more than one step away from the exit door. What I mean by that is they're going from fiat currency into Bitcoin or Ethereum, and then they're going into some of these other crap coins. So if they ever want to get out of these crap coins, there's a three-step process where they have to go from these coins back to Ethereum and then back into fiat currency. Now, if the bubble bursts and there's a panic to get out, who's to say that they can get out because they're so far removed from the exit sign? So that's something that they have to consider as well. We saw that the Ethereum network jammed recently with CryptoKitties. So what happens if there are a whole bunch of transactions on an ERC20 token because people are trying to get out? It might be something. There may be a situation where they can't get out of their position. Now, Bitcoin is very, very liquid. So that's the other thing to consider. There is that Bitcoin is the only thing that really has any value in this space. It's very liquid. So for those reasons, I really suggest that people just hold Bitcoin and not some of these other altcoins, even though altcoins can give you a thrill on the way up because they do move very, very quickly.
Yeah, one of the things that Bitcoin has lately is that store of value, and that's what a lot of people have been leaning on, is the store of value property. I think it was Tone Vays in the video, he talked about how Bitcoin can process about 4 to 7 transactions a second.
Right.
But with the development of the Lightning Network, I mean, we might have, each one of those transactions have a second layer on top of it where 1 million transactions are taking place. And that development would be such a value add to Bitcoin because so many companies have stepped away from Bitcoin because of the transaction fees and how much it costs to transact with it. And if people started to use it for that small transaction purpose, I mean, you really have a lot more of a future for Bitcoin going forward. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. The Lightning Network is a game changer. It really is. And all these other people that are promoting all these other coins by saying that it's fast and cheap compared to Bitcoin, which is a little bit more expensive, and it is a little bit slow and clunky. I'm wondering what their sales pitch is going to be once the Lightning Network gets fully implemented. and we have a fast, cheap, and reliable um, payment network attached to Bitcoin. I'm wondering what's the value proposition of any of these other coins when that happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I can really see Bitcoin sucking the life out of a lot of the altcoin space once that happens, and maybe Bitcoin Cash at the same time. Tim, I got to ask you, have your thoughts since Magic Money and, through 2017 and into 2018, have your thoughts evolved at all? Any new insight or any new, paradigm approaches that you might have towards cryptocurrencies as things have changed?
I'm not a crypto expert, and I don't have time to go through each of these coins one at a time. And so it's really difficult to differentiate between what a legitimate ICO or a legitimate coin is compared to a complete and utter scam. So it's just, I mean, I'm sure there's some coins out there that have great value propositions, but I really don't have the time to look through all of them and differentiate the good ones from the bad ones. So have they changed? Not really. Has my opinion changed? Not really. I think the reason why I got into Bitcoin to begin with hasn't changed, and it was never to speculate and make money. Yeah, I look at all these other coins as just, I mean, people, they're just investments, but they're not even that. You're basically just going to the casino, right? And playing the roulette wheel. That's basically what's happening. And you may put your money into a coin that goes up 200 times, and that's great. But at that point, you're just gambling. I don't think, I never got into cryptos to gamble. That wasn't the whole point of this. So, no, my opinion really hasn't changed. I still think that Bitcoin will rule at the end of the day, and that's how I position myself.
Excellent. I love the way that I think it was Tone Bays during the video describing Bitcoin unconfiscatable, censorship resistant. Nobody can stop a payment, the way they could, a US dollar payment, through the banking system. There's an intermediary. There's someone in the middle that it goes through. And with Bitcoin, you're your own bank, and you can send your money around the world. And Trace Mayer brought up the point that 30% of transactions in Africa are fraudulent. And
credit card transactions,
Bitcoin,
yeah.
You can know for sure that someone paid you a legitimate payment, and that opens up a whole new marketplace for people who are in Africa who want to open up their business and sell to people around the world. And so how cool is that? And I guess the percentage of utility, the benefit of Bitcoin really is for a lot of these places around the world where their banking system is corrupted and their government is very corrupt. And I know we complain about what we have in the US and Australia and Europe, but to a large degree we have a lot of normalcy compared to certain other parts of the world where they really have seen their currencies collapse. And a 30% move in Bitcoin is something they welcome. We're worried about that. They're like, well, we get that with our local currency anyway, so we might as well be in Bitcoins.
Yeah, when I first start telling a new person about Bitcoin, and I say that you can send censorship-resistant transactions, people usually say, well, why do I ever need to do that? Why do I ever need to send a censorship-resistant transaction? And my answer is, well, you live in a first world country. We're lucky that you live in the States. I live in Australia, Japan, Europe. You have all these developed economies where banks talk to each other. But there is a significant minority of the world that either don't have bank accounts or are underbanked. And this is where Bitcoin can fill a hole because of the way the Bitcoin network works. So basically, Bitcoin is a push system. When I have Bitcoin and I want to send you Bitcoin, I push my Bitcoin to you. You mentioned that in Africa, about a third of all credit card transactions are fraudulent. So no one wants to take business from Africa because of the risk of getting a chargeback. And this is because when you send a credit card transaction, the way you do it is that you put your credit card details onto a website, or you punch them into a spreadsheet or a website somewhere, and you're giving permission for the merchant to pull funds from your account. So credit cards are a pull system. You're saying you can pull money. I give you permission to pull money from my credit card. Bitcoin is a push system, so there can't be any fraud because the owner of the value is pushing it to the merchant. And so that's the main difference. And so, yeah, I mean, if Bitcoin's it has the potential to revolutionize Africa and Southeast Asia and some of these places where the people are underbanked.
That's powerful. So how are your thoughts on gold lately? Have your thoughts on gold evolved? I know you said you were a libertarian. I'm sure you came across Bitcoin because of your affinity to sound money and Austrian economics. But being that gold really hasn't been that exciting, let's just say, since 2011. What are your thoughts towards gold, especially in this world of cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, so gold's never actually been exciting, right? I mean, it just kind of sits there and does its thing. I still
Unless the
love
currency's
gold.
right?
Okay. I've always loved gold. It's money and value outside of the financial system. If you think that banks are inherently risky and they're insolvent at times, then yeah, you should have some money in gold. So I still like gold. Just because Bitcoin's come along, that hasn't really changed my thoughts on gold. Look, if the central banks of Russia and China are smart enough to buy gold, yeah, I mean, why not just copy them? I think that in the future, we're going to see a world where Bitcoin and gold are going to complement each other, and they'll both be at the center of global commerce to settle international trade. Yeah, my thoughts on gold haven't changed at all, and but I do agree that Bitcoin's a lot more exciting, and because there's actual technology behind Bitcoin, it's such a fast-paced. It just moves so quickly that there's always changes, there's always updates, and so you really have to stay on top of it, and that's what makes it so exciting.
Yeah. The thing about gold is, I feel like because it's more boring, because it's more stable, I can put more money than I'm willing to lose. That's what we say with Bitcoin, right? We've always said that. Don't put more money into Bitcoin than you're willing to lose. But the thing is if it's going to be a wealth storage vehicle, you need to be able to put more money into Bitcoin than you're willing to lose if it's going to do its job of storing your wealth. But because of the volatility and, kind of its, infancy, if you will, I mean, it's only been around for just under 10 years or whatever it is. It's still new. It moves around a lot. But with gold, I'd be much more comfortable putting a much larger portion of my money into it, just for the sake that I have a better idea of where it'll be in 6 months to 2 to 3 years. Although, if I flipped my cryptocurrency and precious metals positions, 18 months ago, I'd be much happier today, even though I've done very well.
Yeah. Gold has a 5,000-year track history. Bitcoin is still kind of the new kid on the block, right? I mean, it has been around for 9 years now, but to me, it's still a new technology and really still an experiment as to where it can go. So I completely agree with you that gold is something that's been a store of value for thousands of years. I don't think that's going to change in the next 50 years. So yeah, I completely agree. I do feel more comfortable putting my money into gold than Bitcoin.
Yeah. Not to disparage Bitcoin, but it's just the nature of it, right? And
yeah, I mean, a lot of people would disagree with me on that. Andy Hoffman's in my film. He's all in with Bitcoin and no gold anymore. There's other people like that. I kind of disagree with them. I don't think you can just turn your back on 5,000 years of history for something that's been around for 9 years. But he feels differently, so that's good for him.
Yeah, no, good for him. And I remember when he did that, and I think he's probably up on his trade from when he.
Oh, he would have to be, yeah.
From when he I think he did it, at a good time. So good for him. But the reality is in 1,000 years, there's going to be a lot of competition for cryptocurrencies. New things will come up, new technologies, but you can't replace gold. Gold is gold. You can't recreate things in the ground, and there's something special about that. But for the next 100 years, couple hundred years, maybe 50 to 100 years, I think Bitcoin has a pretty important space to fill into, especially as the governments start to implode. The credit around the world really starts to come undone, and central banks have to unwind so much of the problems that they have. We got a lot of opportunity for these finite assets, which Bitcoin is, to really perform well. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, so I agree. I think in the future, there's going to be, like, gold and Bitcoin, they're not enemies. I think they complement each other. They're both trying to do the same thing, right? They both are money outside of the financial system. They're both bearer assets. So they're fighting the same war, just from different angles, you could say. One is something physical that you can hold in your hand. The other is digital and electronic, and it's in the ether. So basically, I think you do well to hold both, because they're both assets outside the financial system, and they both do similar things, but just in a different way.
Yeah. Tim, so I'd like to get some concluding thoughts here with your thoughts on cryptocurrency, and just really what you want people to walk away with when they watch this documentary. Of course, we'll have the links in the description area if people want to learn more about what you're doing. All these things. Again, thanks for coming on Crush the Street.
Yeah, no problems. Thanks for having me again. Final thoughts. Basically, Bitcoin is more than just a speculative investment. It's more than something that could make you rich. There is actual technology behind it. There's properties of it that make it unique from other altcoins. And I think if you're a new person, before you jump into Bitcoin, you really should study it. You should learn a little bit about how money works, and also the technology side of things. If you watch my film, Bitcoin Beyond the Bubble, which is free on YouTube, we do briefly talk about the current state of money, and how the US dollar is not on a gold standard anymore, and what role that Bitcoin plays in an environment where basically our fiat money that we use is just ones and zeros in a banking system. So go check out the film, leave feedback if you want, and that's basically my final thought.
Tim, you are the man. I look forward to more documentaries here in the future. Do you have any others in mind that you think you'll be producing in the near future here?
I'd really like to make a documentary about why Bitcoin is different from altcoins. Because when ICOs first came out, and when altcoins first came out, basically they were seen as a vehicle to try to make more Bitcoin. So you would get your Bitcoin, put it into an altcoin, and if that altcoin went up faster than Bitcoin, you can then convert it back into Bitcoin, and you would make more Bitcoin. I don't think that's the case any longer. I think what's happening is people are going straight from fiat currencies into the latest ICO, and they just ignore Bitcoin altogether. So I think a film that explains the dangers of ICOs, the way that you can get ripped off, and why Bitcoin is different from ICOs is something that would be an interesting film. One other thing I'd like to mention before I go is that my film Bitcoin Beyond the Bubble and also Magic Money, they're both available in Japanese and Korean as well. So we've made foreign language versions for anyone that's watching that would rather watch it in Japanese or Korean.
Excellent. Tim, thanks for coming on Crush the Street. You're always welcome here. Let's not wait a year next time. A year in cryptocurrency space is like a generation. So much has happened. Again, thanks for coming on Crush the Street.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on again.